Hi, everybody. My name is Bill Peterson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Friends of San Lucas, and we want to welcome you to our first ever live event to raise money in support of one of our favorite programs in San Lucas, Tolomán, Guatemala, the Women's Center. Give to the Max Day is a really important day for all Minnesotans to come together to support the organizations that they really care about. And we are hoping that in the next few minutes, as you meet some of the people from the Women's Center and people who have been impacted by its work, you will be inspired to support us and to help us reach our goal of raising $10,000 to support this vital program. The Women's Center was one of the dreams of Father Greg Schaefer, who founded the mission in San Lucas, Tolomán. And it was the final dream that he was able to see fulfilled before he died. The Women's Center was perhaps one of his most audacious dreams, because to create a place in which women could gather, both married and single, with their children, outside of the home, was something that was truly revolutionary in the culture. But he did create it, and it has become a place of tremendous growth and peace, encouragement, and education for the hundreds of women who come to the center every year from San Lucas and from the surrounding communities. We are extraordinarily proud of this work. Friends of San Lucas exists for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to try and help create a just community in San Lucas, Tolomán. We do that by supporting the work of the mission financially and logistically. And we also do that by providing a visitors program that brings over 1,200 people a year to San Lucas to experience the impact of the programs, as well as to be changed by what they see in their experience of Maya culture. We're delighted you could be here with us, and we're very excited to introduce you in a few minutes to the director of the Women's Center and her assistant. But before we do that, we're going to tell you a little bit of her story. The story of Francisca Cocón Axibanac, better known as Huicha, begins on October 10th, 1968, on the San Bernardino coffee plantation near Chimaltenango in southwestern Guatemala. She is born to Juana Valerina Cocón and Doloteo Axibanac. From the very beginning, her life is shaped by the fact that she is a poor, Cachiquel-speaking indigenous female born into servitude on a plantation. Her prospects for becoming educated, for leaving the plantation, or for having any kind of independence are minuscule. It would seem that the arc of her life will be like millions of others, with little access to education, healthcare, or employment, and subject to the systemic racism that prevents most indigenous people in Guatemala from ever having a fair chance at creating their own destiny and living into their potential. However, Huicha's life took some unexpected twists and turns, leading her in a different direction, but not without a lot of struggle along the way. Life on the fincas was hard. Days were spent harvesting and cultivating coffee, and children were expected to help the family in the fields, limiting their access to any meaningful education. There were 7 kids in the family, and they all worked in the coffee fields, beginning as soon as they could walk, picking beans off the ground that the adults had dropped. When Huicha was 10, her mother died suddenly, and as the oldest female, she had to take over the role of mother, cooking and caring for her brothers and sisters. She awoke early every day to make the tortillas, beans, and rice that the family would carry into the fields when they left at 4:30 in the morning. In 1982, the Civil War that had been simmering since 1960 erupted around her, and Huicha was soon immersed in the conflict. Her brother and 6 other family members were kidnapped by the army and were never seen again. The family decided to leave the finca of San Bernardino in hopes of finding a safer plantation, but each was worse than the last. Then in 1984, Huicha's father died, and all hope seemed lost. After her father's death, Huicha learned from one of the priests in San Lucas that a house might be available through the parish. The priest, Father John Goggin, had come to San Lucas in 1968 from Minnesota. The family moved, and Huicha's fortune began to change as she was offered a job caring for a neighbor's child. But at 16, Huicha still couldn't read, write, or speak Spanish very well. Father Greg Schaefer, who had come to the mission in 1963, also from Minnesota, encouraged Huicha to go to the mission school. So this tall, regal young woman folded herself into a desk built for a first grader and took her place in class alongside the 6-year-olds. It took 5 years for her to complete her studies. Along the way, she was a star on the basketball court at recess. Huicha is now the director of the Women's Center at the Mission in San Lucas. She oversees programming for hundreds of women who travel from outlying communities to take classes in sewing, weaving, and cooking. Learning from Huicha is often a trip highlight of groups visiting San Lucas from abroad. Huicha has traveled to the United States several times to talk about the mission and the impact its programs have on the 25,000 people they serve every year. Huicha is a testimony to the strength and resilience of women all over the world, but especially the indigenous women of Guatemala.
Buenos días, es un gusto para mí presentarme. Mi nombre es Francisca Axibinac y soy la directora del programa del Centro de Mujeres.
Muy buenos días, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Karina Hernández y actualmente tengo el cargo de subdirectora del programa Centro de Mujeres.
Para mi punto de vista, ¿verdad? Como mujer, como madre separada, ¿verdad? Es algo muy importante en la vida de la mujer, tratando de la mujer soltera o madre soltera, pues lo que ella hace, ¿verdad? Es buscar forma como darle también a los hijos una mejor educación.
Y si nos enfocamos más, ¿verdad?, en el tema de las mujeres indígenas, el estado es muy crítico, ya que bien sabemos de que por ser indígenas tienen muy pocas oportunidades para poder desenvolverse y tener participación en otros espacios. Entonces es acá, ¿verdad?, en donde el centro las ha apoyado, ya sean las diferentes capacitaciones y también dándoles espacio para que ellas aprendan a desenvolverse y aprender sobre otras cosas.
Bueno, para mí uno de los retos que tienen las mujeres, ¿verdad?, es aprovechar los espacios, oportunidades que se les está brindando para poder también lograr desenvolverse mejor, darse su oportunidad como mujer, como madre. Igual también una de las fortalezas, ¿verdad?, es seguir aprendiendo más, preparándose más personalmente y luego replicarlo tanto en la sociedad como en su comunidad.
A mi punto de vista, uno de los retos más grandes que tenemos como mujeres es el poder incidir para que seamos tomadas en cuenta en las cosas, ¿verdad?, que nosotros sabemos hacer. Y nuestra fortaleza más grande, ¿verdad?, como mujeres, es el valor que nosotras mismas nos podemos dar en tomar la decisión de decir sí puedo y sí quiero hacer las cosas.
Bueno, el programa del Centro de Mujeres, ¿verdad?, es un apoyo y oportunidad para las mujeres de diferentes edades. También el programa pues está capacitando a las mujeres con los diferentes cursos para poder lograr también una parte la economía en la familia, dándoles una mejor educación a los hijos, igual dar más oportunidad también para que las mujeres se desenvuelven.
Al inicio de la pandemia se nos limitó mucho el seguir trabajando con las mujeres de esta manera. Por tal razón se dio inicio con el pequeño proyecto de huertos familiares, beneficiando a cada mujer donándoles 5 variedades de semilla. De la misma manera también apoyando a las diferentes instituciones que están apoyando para el resguardo de nuestro municipio, donándoles platillos, ¿verdad?, de almuerzos a cada uno de ellos. Esto en agradecimiento por el trabajo que ellos están haciendo por nosotros.
Bueno, el programa del Centro de Mujeres pues ha sido de una bendición, ¿verdad? Ya que este es el primer programa que está proporcionando esta oportunidad gratuitamente para la preparación de la mujer, ya que aquí este programa pues ha hecho, ¿verdad?, la realidad del sueño de las mujeres, ha abierto los ojos porque se les ha dado el espacio como ellas se pueden desenvolverse mejor. Igual también tenemos la tienda acá, ¿verdad?, donde ya ellas pueden vender sus propias artesanías.
El Centro de Mujeres me importa porque es un centro, ¿verdad?, de capacitaciones, pero más que eso es un lugar en donde las mujeres tienen la oportunidad de seguir dando a conocer el trabajo que ellas pueden realizar, plasmar, ¿verdad?, en los tejidos el arte que ellas pueden elaborar y al mismo tiempo, ¿verdad?, no perder nuestra cultura, nuestras tradiciones de portar y elaborar nuestras propias indumentarias. Entonces, para mí el Centro de Mujeres tiene un valor muy grande.
De parte de la dirección del programa Centro de Mujeres, queremos agradecerles por el apoyo que nos han brindado, que Dios los bendiga.
Al mismo tiempo les hacemos la cordial invitación para que nos sigan apoyando, para que nuestro programa siga beneficiando a más personas. Gracias.
Buenos días, mi nombre es María Talé, soy de la comunidad San Gregorio y agradecer a Dios por esa experiencia que he aprendido en el Centro de Mujeres, porque en esos días de la pandemia yo ya me estaba enfermando de estar encerrado en mi casa, pero gracias a mi esposa, mi hija me apoyaron con pequeño de recursos para poder empezar mi negocio. Ahorita yo ya no siento que es la depresión, ya salí a distraerme, a vender mis panes y gracias a Dios me está yendo bien. Yo cuando llegué al Centro de Mujeres, a mí me habían comentado unos vecinos que ahí dan bonitos cursos, entonces yo busqué la manera cómo llegar ahí y sí, cuando llegué vi bonitos cursos y me interesó ese curso de cocina y eso empecé a ir y gracias a Dios que aprendí lo que doña Huicha había enseñado de repostería y de comida, refacciones. También me ha interesado de textil y de costura en máquina. El centro me ha ayudado porque he aprendido elaborar panes de zanahoria, de banano, de piña y refacciones y comida. Y por eso estoy agradecido con la misión, por esa ayuda y al padre Gregorio, pero esa es la misión de él y sí se está viendo en las familias que sí se está cumpliendo todo lo que él deseó. El centro me ha cambiado la vida porque antes yo trabajaba en el campo y en estos días ya no tengo preocupación de estar madrugando, ir al campo, ir a sufrir por medio de sol, lluvia. Ahora estoy elaborando mis pasteles, mis panes de piña, zanahoria y estoy agradecido con la misión porque me ha cambiado este destino, sufrimiento de ir al campo. El Centro de Mujeres me importa porque tiene un valor muy grande, porque ahí aprendemos textil, repostería, cocina, bordados de cintura. También compartimos nuestras experiencias con las otras mujeres y también agradecer por las semillas que nos han enviado por parte de la misión, tener un pequeño huerto en nuestros hogares, porque quizás en estos días no podemos salir en los pueblos a comprar verduras en el mercado, pero tenemos en nuestro alcance aquí en nuestro hogar. Gracias a los donantes y los amigos que apoyan el Centro de Mujeres, y les animo que sigan apoyando a ese curso, porque sí, a muchas mujeres nos ha cambiado la vida, buscar cómo ayudar a nuestros hijos y así no sentir de todo lo que está pasando en estos días.
Welcome, everybody. The Women's Center impacts the lives of not only the women who attend classes there, but the people who are able to visit and serve as volunteers at the mission in San Lucas. And we are absolutely honored and delighted to have with us today 3 people who have spent considerable time in San Lucas and at the Women's Center to talk a little bit about how the Women's Center has impacted and shaped their lives. So let's begin by just going around and doing introductions on how you got connected to the mission.
Sure, I can go ahead and start, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here virtually with you all. My name is Heather Statz. I served as the volunteer coordinator from 2014 to 2017. And I'm currently back in the States, full-time job as a social worker living in Baraboo, Wisconsin. And I do also continue to serve on the board for the Friends of San Lucas.
Hi everyone, I'm Cullen. I was a long-term volunteer in San Lucas for 6 months after graduating high school from 2018 to 2019, and then I returned home, and I'm in Minnesota now, but I'm also studying at Seattle University, pursuing my degree in social work and Spanish.
All right, and I am Alex. I was a long-term volunteer for about a year in 2017, and then I worked full-time for the Friends of San Lucas for about a year and a half after that, and now I'm currently in Monterey, California, pursuing my master's in public administration.
Great, thank you, and welcome to you all. So Alex, you're in Monterey, California, and yet you've still said that the Women's Center is one of your most favorite places in the entire world. Why is that? What about the Women's Center impacted you?
I have said that, and I still stand by it after being in Monterey for a while. We've talked about this before, but I think most people that have been there, whether they've been there for a few days or for a few years, like Heather, can attest to the fact that it just is this place that just feels like home. So when I get there, there's just this sense of joy and peace and love that I feel. And I think that is for a lot of reasons, but mostly for the relationships that I've built there and how everybody there just welcomes you with open arms. It just feels like a really beautiful place every time you go there.
Yeah, Alex, I would agree. And I think that one of the things that is so special about the Women's Center is kind of that you don't ever really know what to expect when you go there, like what the day will bring, but you always know that you'll be welcome. And I think that that's something that I've personally felt. I think visitors have felt that. And I also think that the women feel that, right? Like they can go there, they don't know who they're going to run into. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's someone that they've never met, but like they know after going there that they will feel welcome.
I'll definitely echo what you've both said. I think it's really important to note how strong of a sense of community one feels when they enter the Women's Center. Just walking through the doors, you can hear the laughter from the kitchen or the chit-chat around the corner of women weaving. Some of my favorite moments have been learning how to weave, also just being in the kitchen with the women and learning how to cook, or running around with the kids outside. They're all such beautiful moments that still stick with me today.
Yeah, they have done a remarkable job, Weecha and Karina, of creating the sense of place and a sense of community that is extraordinarily welcoming. Cullen mentioned the weaving, and behind both Cullen and Alex is the typical loy, which is the pattern that is unique to San Lucas. So whenever you see those red and white stripes, you know it originated there. And it's an extraordinarily painstaking process, as the three of them well know, all of them having done it. I do not have the patience for it. So I applaud you in that effort. It's remarkable work. So thank you for sharing that in that photo. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what you carry with you from your experience at the Women's Center. How does it go forward in your life today?
I can start. It's with me in many different ways. And specifically, in my time in grad school right now, I've actually featured the Women's Center in many of my research projects. I've worked with student teams to kind of share my experiences and build different things that the Women's Center can hopefully use in the future. So that's one way I think I'm known around school as kind of the crazy Guatemala girl. So I do truly carry them with me every day. And I think another way, especially right now, since, we can't go there, we all feel kind of very distant right now. I am lucky enough to be a part of the Women's Center committee. And so I do still hear about the amazing work that they're doing and the work that they've adapted for these hard times. And so that passion that they have to help their communities and continue to be involved is something that I carry with me every day, and something that I have kind of scrapped up my small grad school budget together to continue donating to the Women's Center, just because I've seen the impact that our team there has had on the lives of the community. And so it's something that I want to continue to support.
Thank you. Heather, Cullen, what about you?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I think just going along with what Alex said and kind of expanding on that, I think something that I really carry with me is kind of the importance of having that space for women, that sense of community where they can kind of be themselves and really develop their identities outside of that traditional mother and spouse. I think those are beautiful things to be and a beautiful part of who they are. But what I really have seen is that the Women's Center provides that opportunity for them to be, Maria and to be who they are. That laughter we've talked about, I think that's something that sticks with us. But just providing that opportunity, not necessarily needing to be we need to teach people anything, right? Because it's not necessarily that. It's giving them that opportunity to be who they are.
And for me, after spending so much time there, I do think about it all the time, but I know that sometimes we can get caught up in our day-to-day lives and we can take some of this stuff for granted. But when I do put on my shirt of San Lucas, or I see my weaving on the wall, I do remember those moments. They do stick with all of us, no matter how long we spend at the mission, if it's a week or 6 months or a year like Heather. But it is a really empowering place, and it's super inspiring to see women so determined to learn and help themselves and their families. And it just goes to show that when we all come together and we create these spaces or support them by donating, if it's a little or a lot, we can all take part in being a part of that magic that happens at the community, at the Women's Center.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to thank the three of you, because you have all three committed major parts of your lives to this work, to the mission, and to the Women's Center. For your support and continued help with all that happens there, we are extraordinarily grateful. Thank you. Have you ever traveled to a country after you've read all kinds of travel books about that place, And then when you got there, you realized the books could not at all prepare you to be in that space, to smell the smells and to hear the noises, to feel the air around you in that place. No book can prepare you for that. When you arrive at the Women's Center, you go down this really pitted road. Maybe you're in the back of a pickup, maybe you're in a van. And as you pull up to the center itself, you're immediately struck by these incredibly manicured lawns that are manicured with machetes. This beautiful grass that welcomes you. And beyond the grass are these gardens full of fruit trees and avocado trees. The medicinal plant garden, where Wicha can walk you among all the medicinal plants, telling you how you can fix your cough, how you can help your blood to flow better, and all the other things that those plants can do for you. And then you can go in the back where they're growing corn and where they're growing some cotton, which they got from seeds from a cooperative around on the other side of the lake on a field trip one year. Just to see and understand what it is that produces the textiles that they then weave into these incredibly beautiful fabrics. Fabrics that tell the story of their history, tell the story of their place in the world. Maya women traditionally wear what's called a huipil, which is a blouse, which is essentially a large rectangle of cloth with a hole cut in the middle. And the hole is where your head goes. And the things that are woven into the blouse are elements of their world, elements of their cosmos. And part of the tradition and part of the symbolism of wearing that is that they are at the center of the universe. Anybody who has spent time in Guatemala or most of the developing world understands that women are at the center of that universe, because they are the ones that really control the power of the community and the power of the family. The Women's Center lives into this dream where women are able to be people first and not simply living out roles. And Wicha and Karina and all the staff there have created this place in which that can happen. We want to thank you for all the support you've shown for the Women's Center during this event, and all the support you will continue to show. The money that you give helps pay salaries. It helps provide materials for women to learn how to weave and to sew and to cook, and supports all the other programming. It gives them transportation from outlying villages so that they can attend, and helps create a space in which they can really grow into the children of God that they are called to be. So thank you on behalf of Wicha, Karina, Maria, whose story you heard, and all the other people who are impacted by this program. Your gifts make a huge difference to people who really deserve it. Thank you.